Daniel Guest, and welcome to the Imagine Podcast, brought to you by PXG and Imagine Golf. You can go to our site, Imagine Golf, to see all of our offerings, including our free drills, our practice plans, our golf ebooks and videos, or to book a lesson with me at our state-of-the-art studio right outside of Philadelphia, or even virtually through our partner, golfliveapp.com. And a special shout out to everyone that's listening to this podcast. We just surpassed 100,000 downloads, if you would, which is a big milestone for us. And we're now in the top 10 of all golf-related podcasts in the country. I think in the world, maybe, but definitely in the country. I have to check that one out. But again, thanks to everybody for listening. It goes a long way, and really appreciate it. Hey, we're going to talk about a topic today that comes up almost all the time, right? For me, anyway. It doesn't matter whether it's in mixed company. You know, I'm at an event. It just happened to me yesterday, as a matter of fact. I'm at a family event, and social event, I should say. But it definitely happens all the time on the golf course, in the golf instruction business, which is simply really three different basic questions of the same thing. Look, hey, Daniel, how do I break 100, right? I'm a new golfer. I'm shooting 110. I'm shooting 120. I'm shooting 140. Hey, man, how do I break 100? And then the next obvious two then from there is, how do I break 90? How do I break 80? And then the last one would be, how do I shoot par? And just a quick side note, I mean, par is definitely achievable. Ben Hogan famously said that he believed anybody that picks up a golf club, for that matter, can achieve par by just doing X. And his X was what he taught people to do. I don't know that I buy into that 100%. But I do believe par is definitely way more achievable than most golfers consider. Last year, we had our best year ever regards to how many of our golfers shot par. We had over 70 shoot par for the very first time. And I can tell you at least half of those, never in their right mind ever considered they would be shooting par. So it's definitely achievable. There are clearly steps and things that you have to do. And look, at golf, we've talked about this a million times. Golf's a crazy hard game. You absolutely have to work on this game, or it's not going to happen. It's simply not going to happen, right? There are very few just natural athletes in golf that just go out there and bang, are phenomenal at it. So I thought today we'd go down and we just kind of give you not necessarily a full-blown plan, if you would, but just some things, tips, if you would, 3 of them for every milestone, if you would, that you have to do if you're going to break 100, 90, 80, and even shoot par. So anyway, so here you go, right? And by the way, shooting 100 is the fun meter for golf, right? And what I mean by that is anybody can go out there and hack the ball around and shoot 120, 130, whatever the numbers are, right? You're going to lose 7, 10, a dozen plus balls or whatever. You're going to slow down everyone behind you. Your playing partners are not going to be too thrilled with you, but you'll get through it, right? But, and by the way, you'll be exhausted at the end of that round. But at 100, once you start getting below 100, now all of a sudden the game starts to become fun, all right? Not necessarily so exhausting, right? So we desperately try at Imagine Golf to get everybody, all of our golfers, below that fun line, if you would, which is the 100 mark, all right? So here are 3 quick things that you can do to get below 100 or towards breaking 100, right? The first is your grip, man. You've got to work on your grip, all right? It's the only connection with the club, right? That's just, common sense, right? But, Ben Hogan, as an example, he devoted an entire chapter of his book, The 5 Fundamentals, to the grip. He talks about practicing the grip, for crying out loud, as you walk around your house for a week, all right? And yet people come to the golf range and come to lessons, I should say, with some crazy grip, all right? So if you don't have a proper grip on the golf club, it will not happen for you, all right? You are not that person that can grip a club a certain way unless you got, medical challenges, if you would, physical limitations, challenges. But if you don't grip the club the proper way, it's just not going to happen. And there's really only 2 grips that you can use. There's the overlap grip, right? Some people say it's the most common. I don't see that as the most common, but it's simply with your finger. If you're a right-handed player, your pinky finger on your right hand, it rests on top of your index finger of your left hand, right? I do believe that most pros use this grip, and most better golfers, when I say better, 80 or below, they use this grip. Some players that come to mind that Palmer, Hogan, we talked about, Mickelson, Koepka, they all use this grip, if you would. So it's definitely a good grip, no doubt about it, right? But I think for the average golfer, a interlock grip is more appropriate, and that is where you take your pinky finger on your left hand, or excuse me, your index finger on your left hand, and you interlock it with the pinky finger on your right hand for a right-handed golfer. All right. That's the most common that we see. What we never see amongst good golfers is a baseball grip where your hands are not connected. 10 fingers are on the club. Players that use an interlock grip, the most famous, Tiger Woods, the best golfer ever. Nicklaus, second best golfer ever. It is my opinion anyway. He uses it. McIlroy has used it, or definitely uses it now, and Koepka is going back and forth as well. And who else? Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler used it, and lately he's been doing phenomenal, if you would. So that's how you're going to grip the club, right? You're going to use one of those two grips. All right. The next thing you're going to figure out in your grip is what type of grip is it? Is it a strong? Is it a weak grip? Again, I could go on and on and on about the virtues of the proper grip, but you've got to know, all right, from a strength perspective, what that's going to do to your shot and to your club face. All right. The stronger a grip is, the more closed the club face is going to be throughout the swing. All right. And while there's no correct or 100% right position, all right, for a club face, at least Titleist doesn't believe there's no one way to swing a golf club. There are, in fact, infinite ways to swing a golf club. All right. But there is the best practices, if you would, or the opportunity to give yourself the best opportunity or best shot to hit good shots. All right. And we at Imagine recommend a neutral grip. All right. And a neutral grip is not where you have two thumbs down the middle of the club, or right down the middle of the grip, right? A neutral grip is where the left hand is just turned slightly to the right or to the inside of the golf club. So your right thumb is on the inside of the golf club, and you can see one knuckle, all right, on your left hand, all right? Start there. If your grip is too weak, meaning you can't see any knuckles on your left hand, you're going to push the ball to the right no matter what you do, hypothetically, right? Statistically. If your grip is too strong, right, you're going to possibly pull the ball, all right? Or you're going to hook the ball or whatever it is. But you've got to start with a neutral grip and get a baseline. And only from there, let's work on changing that grip to fit your actual swing, if you would. So figure out what the right grip is for you. Start with some of the basics that we just outlined, and you're going to be absolutely fine, all right? Do not go to either extreme, right? Do not have a crazy weak grip and do not have a crazy strong grip. And certainly we are not a fan of non-interlocking grips in any way, shape, or form, or the baseball grip, all right? So that's first. If you're gonna try to break 100, you need to have a proper grip. The second, what I recommend is start using alignment sticks, right? We're fortunate to have a lot of products sent to us, and we get alignment sticks that cost up to $50 every once in a while. It always cracks me up. Have at it. You want to buy those alignment sticks at that expensive price? Go to Golf Galaxy, wherever you get your stuff. Have at it. You can obviously go to Home Depot or Lowe's or a local hardware store and get a driveway marker for like $1.50 as well. It's almost the same exact thing, right? But make sure you start practicing with alignment sticks. All right. Make sure you're parallel to your target on every shot. Every shot, line up your feet, line up your waistline, line up your chest, and you are parallel to the target or square to the target. All right. Make sure. Okay. And then from there, we can start grooving different things with those alignment sticks. And Imagine we're big fans of shooting or aiming towards 11 o'clock or swinging, 1 o'clock from a right-handed golfer. So or right field, or we get that alignment stick a little bit to the right. All right. And from the face of the clock, 12 would be neutral. 1 o'clock would be a little bit to the right, right? And we get that alignment stick going that way, and that's the swing path that we get our golfers to go to. But if you're going to break 100, you've got to start aligning yourself correctly. And the easiest way to do that is with alignment sticks, if you would. And then the last thing for breaking 100 is practice a pitch shot, right? You've got to be better at chipping and pitching, right? To break 100. There's no doubt about it. And I know what you're gonna say. Hey man, I can barely hit a full shot. Why would I practice my chipping? Well, because it's going to be about over 30-40% of your game. That's why, right? All right. You've got to improve your chipping and your small shots, if you would. And here's the catch, right? Or here's the best part about it is when you're working on chipping and smaller shots and pitching, you're actually working on your full swing anyway, right? So if you can't swing a full swing, right, work on your half shots, work on your 3/4 shots, work on your quarter shots. By the way, if you can't do a half shot in golf, there is no way you're going to do a full shot, right? Just say it out loud. You cannot take a proper full shot if you can't even hit a half shot. So the half shots are going to get that ball up quicker. It's an easier shot. It's going to go, obviously not as far. It's going to land softer, though, and it's going to be a shot that you can grow confidence with, and that's going to lead to a 3/4 shot and then to a full shot. So those are the three things that you're going to have to practice to even get a shot or a sniff at breaking 100. And by the way, how much do you need to practice? You need to practice an hour a week. An hour a week, all right? And that's proper practice. We're not going to go through that here. But if you're not going to practice an hour a week, the chances are that you are not going to break. You can't just play your way to under 100. I guess you can, but it's not likely, all right? All right, so second one, breaking 90. Here's where the fun really starts to come in, right? You start shooting 90, you're in the top 20% of all golfers on the planet, all right? And the game changes from just having fun to a little bit more strategery, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, right? So it's a lot different once you start breaking 90. Not only is it fun, but you start to have some strategy involved. You start to be a little bit more calculated. You start to have a better idea of what you're doing. And it's just, I think, the best time, right? Once someone starts getting below the 90 threshold, they really start to enjoy the game. And almost that's where the game almost becomes addictive, if you would. All right. It can be one of the most difficult. Look, it's easy to get someone from 120 to 100, but it's not as easy to get someone from 100 to 90. So it can be challenging for sure. It's not as challenging for an instructor as it is for the individual, right? Because there's a lot of things that you got to change. All right. The number one thing you got to change is you got to stop these ridiculous shots that you're trying. Right. I just had a playing lesson recently. The guy warms up on the range. He's a great guy and going to be a great golfer, but he did incredibly dumb things on the golf course that cost him, 10, 15 strokes. But we're on the warm up. We're at the warm up facility, and I noticed that, man, everything is a slice. I mean, a hard slice, and it's just it's not going to go well, right? And it's certainly not. We're about 4 holes in, and that slice is rearing its ugly head, and we roll up to the next par 5 on the 4th or 5th hole, and it's a dog leg left, right? And he lines up for this incredible draw, and I just said to him, I said, Michael, what are you doing, man? He's like, oh, I'm gonna play a draw here. I'm like, dude, no, you're not. You haven't hit a draw in the last 60 shots, including the warm up. You're not going to hit one now when you need it the most, man. So that would be a dumb shot, right? The hero shots, all right? Absolutely ridiculous, right? You hit a horrible one shot or hit a bad shot, and then you go after the second one trying to make up for that horrible shot that you just hit, right? You just can't do it, right? No one that plays good golf takes these ridiculous shots, all right? Here's a couple more, all right? You're in love with your lob wedge, and you're trying flop shots, right? You can't break 90. You shoot 95, 97, 101, but you're trying flop shots. That doesn't even make any sense, right? You're trying to carry a hazard or a water, 200 plus yards. This doesn't even make sense, right? You're going for a par 5 and 2, and you're 250 yards out. I mean, it doesn't even matter, right? I mean, why? All right. You're aiming directly at pins, right? You're shooting for pins at the hole instead of going for the center of the green. We did a whole podcast on that. You're in love with your wedge, and you're trying this beautiful high lofted shot when there's nothing in front of you. All right, when you can keep it low. All right, and just again, and we did a whole podcast on height, loft. Right, is risk. If you equate loft to risk, you're better off. All right. You're trying to go through, a tree. You hit it between, or you hit it, in the next fairway, and the trees are between you, and you see a 10-foot hole, and you're trying to chip. All these things are ridiculous shots, right? So you got to stop all that, right? So that's the number one thing. if you're going to get in the 90s, you got to stop these shots that absolutely kill your score. All right. The second thing, all right. And by the way, one thing that I would do if you want to do this, I'd write down some of your shots that you've tried or that you're not going to try anymore. Call it your do not hit list, right? Whatever. All right. But you're not going to hit through trees. You're not going to try a flop shot. You're not going to go for it plus two. Let's just call it 200 or whatever. But just write that down. It's amazing if you write that stuff down, how much you stop doing it. So just a little side bit there, a little tip there. Right? All right. The second thing, if you want to break 90, is look, man, you got to learn how to hit out of a bunker, right? It's so funny. Again, when I play, but when I do playing lessons, people hitting the bunker and the first words out of their mouth is a 4-letter word, and it's not golf, right? But you've got to know how to hit out of a bunker, all right? And it's got to be you got to have confidence, all right? Most people that hit into bunkers automatically are adding 2, 3, or 4 shots, all right, to that hole, if you would. So they're not the easiest, but they're not that hard either. I mean, the nice thing about sand is it's a very consistent lie, all right? So when you're in a bunker, if you're in a green side bunker, just get it on the green, right? Find an area that's big, aim there, and just get it there, all right? And then go through some setups, all right? Widen your stance, dig your feet in a little bit, right? Depending on the lie, if you would, maybe a little bit weight forward, right? Definitely the club face open. Definitely hit behind the golf ball. Try not to get any of the golf ball, and loft it up, all sand, all right? But if you're going to break 90, all right, you've got to do that. You've got to learn how to hit out of a bunker, all right? And the last thing, number 3, all right, you've got to track some stats, all right? So if you're going to track stats and you're going to track the normal stats on tour, fairways hit in regulation, have at it, right? We're not big fans of that because in our understanding of instruction and how to get better, those don't equate to getting better as much as these next 3. And these are from Hank Haney. These aren't Daniel Guest or Imagine Golf. But penalty shots, you got to track your penalty shots. You got to track your 2 chips. In other words, you're from in 100 yards. You've got to hit that green. All right. So if you go 90 and another chip, that's 2 chips. That would be another +1, and 3 putts. Right. So you've got to start tracking that stuff. We're not going to work on them yet, but you got to start tracking that stuff if you want to break 90. All right. So there we go. Those are the 3 things to break 90. Now breaking 80. All right. Now, not only is the game fun and a little strategic, now we're actually attacking the golf course. And I know for a lot of you that are listening, you're like, what? What does that mean? I haven't attacked any golf course. In fact, a golf course is always normally attacking me. All right. So here's not an easy way. There's nothing easy about golf, but here's some easy tips, if you would, for the 90 shooter to start breaking 80. All right. And the reason for these tips and you're going to see them in a minute, or listen to them in a minute, is they're more strategic and they're more towards your weaknesses, if you would, right? So usually there are a few areas for the 90 shooter, that weaknesses, if you would, that are limiting them from getting any better. And that could be mental, right? Golf's crazy mental, or it could be just a swing flaw or a strategic flaw, if you would. So the first one is an easy one, is put the driver away every once in a while. All right. You're going to use it 14 times. And if you're not hitting it good on the practice range and you use it, our rule of thumb at Imagine is 3. If you use it 3 times and it doesn't work well, right? The result is not positive. It's not going to happen. It's not going to turn around the next 11 times you use it, right? So put it away, all right? And have a plan, right? In other words, you practice your 3-wood or whatever hybrid you have, whatever you have besides a driver in the event the driver's not cooperating. Practice that on the range, right? Practice hitting your 3-wood off a tee. Practice hitting your 19-degree hybrid off a tee, all right? So that when the driver goes awry, all right, that you have a plan and you feel confident about that plan, all right? Maybe even if it's a long iron, right? I used to have a driving iron that I used to smack the crap out of that thing, man. I don't know why it doesn't work for I do know why, because I'm 58 years old. But in my early 40s, man, I absolutely love that thing, right? So you've got to feel comfortable on the tee. And if you're hitting bad drives, 3, 4, 5 times, it's just not going to work, right? It's just not going to work. So make sure you have a plan that when your driver's not cooperating, you put it in timeout just for the round, if you would, and you go there, right? You go for that plan, if you would. The second tip for breaking 80 is look, you've got to treat it like less than like a game, if you would, and more like a sport. Here's what I mean by that, right? One thing that I realized when my first time I played with a professional golfer, right, is these guys don't get out of focus, right? They hit a bad shot and it's like they don't even remember that they hit it, right? They're so dialed in, if you would, that they're just aren't. Look, bad shots happen. They know that, and they know what they got to do to get that next shot where it needs to go. So that's not a bad hole and or a bad round, right? Bad shots lead to second bad shots, lead to third bad shots, lead to bad putts, lead to bad holes, lead to bad nines, lead to bad rounds. When I played with a couple of professionals, that never happens with these guys. They not only rarely do they hit bad shots, right? Their missed hits are my, some of my better shots, right? But at the end of the day, they are experts at that short memory, if you would, right? So we're big advocates that imagine that, look, when you hit a bad shot, come right back behind that bad shot and take a practice shot with the form and function that you wanted to deliver on that shot, right? Get that club away from your body, have a nice, smooth, measured swing, if you would, good tempo, and then go get that ball, right? But there is a lot to be said about the mental piece of the game. And when you treat it like a sport, right, instead of a game, it just comes different. And, I played at pretty high level ice hockey in my lifetime. And, you never come off the ice after a shift and, you're done for the day. You're like, oh my God, that shift was so bad, man. I didn't want to go out there. Right. It was 60 seconds, right? You're out and anybody that watches hockey know the shifts are very short. So you're out 60 seconds, things don't go your way. A couple things go wrong. If you would, you make a couple bad plays and you're like, you know what, guys, that was so horrible. I'm done. Right. You don't even do that because in a sport, right, you just know that you're going to come back. Your next shift's going to be better. And your next shift after that's going to be better. And your teammates are going to lift you up, right? Well, we don't have that per se in golf with the whole team aspect, if you would. But, right, we can have mentally, right? You're going to treat it like a sport. Bad things happen and bad breaks happen, but you're going to be positive, right? And you're going to go for it. And you're going to figure out, hey, you just hit that horrible bunker shot. All right, here I go. I'm going to put this one up there, all right? Don't make it too complicated, right? You don't need to worry about, any, special technique or whatever. All right. We talked about, the importance of those stats, right? You might want to double up on some of those stats, right? How many total putts did you take? All right. Did you hit many greens in regulation? All right. Were you keeping the ball in the fairway? All right. What was your up and down, your sand saves? All right. Your sandies, as we used to call them, right? Pay attention to your scorecard, right? You don't need an app. All right. I see all these apps, all right, that track everything. You don't need an app to get better or get into the 80s, if you would. But you do need to know where you're dropping strokes. All right. So pay attention to that. All right. And if you do, you'll absolutely have a better shot, if you would, of getting, below 80, if you would. All right. And here's a couple things, right? I think when you're trying to get below 80, you got to pick your spots. All right. That would be number 3. Pick your spots, right? Don't go for things if you don't need to. All right. Take the shot at the pin because you're drawing the ball a little bit today. It's to the left and there's nothing wrong or there's no hazards on the left side of the green. So instead of going for the center, like we always profess, if you would, you have an opportunity here to score. All right. So tip number 3 would be when you have an opportunity to score. All right. Go for it. That doesn't mean you're 175 yards out and you're shooting to the left side of the green, right? What it does mean is you have an 80-yard wedge or 80-yard shot, and that's your go-to full swing wedge shot with your sand wedge, and you're drawing the ball a little bit, and you have an opportunity to pull that ball right to the pin. That does what it means. That is what it means. All right. So score when you can, all right, but be smart, all right? You're attacking the golf course a little bit more, all right, and you're going to get in the 80s, all right? Now, here comes the real fun. Getting into the 70s, all right? Look, by the way, if you shoot below 80, you're in the top 10% of all golfers in the world. If you shoot par, you're in the top 3 to 4, depending on what stats you look at. But not many golfers, right, have broken 70, right, or even shoot par for that matter. I've never broken 70. I have shot par, never broken 70, right? But it is possible, all right? It is absolutely possible, all right? By the way, here's what a 70 round looks like, right? You don't know bogeys, right? You've birdied at least 2 of the par 4s and probably all of the par 5s. You've knocked 1 or 2 approach shots within 7 feet, and then you make the 1 putt, right? There's no 3 putts, all right? And you've gotten up and down probably 50% of the time, all right? And just when you say that out loud, those are difficult. Those 5 things, right? No worse than bogey. You birdie at least 2 of the par 4s and probably all the par 5s, or 2 of the par 5s. You've knocked down at least 2 approach shots within 7 feet, and you make the 1-timer, all right? You've had no 3 putts, and you get up and down at least 50% of the time, all right? So those are the 5 things that have to happen, all right? Not necessarily in that order, but almost always have to happen if you're going to break 70. That's a long list, right? But it is absolutely possible, absolutely possible. So if you want to get even lower than that, oh man, look. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, to break 80, you've got to practice 2 times a week. Excuse me, to break 90, you got to practice at least 2 hours a week. To break 80, you've got to practice 3 hours a week, right? So if you're not willing to do that, it ain't going to happen. All right. You can be that phenom. You can be that 1%er. You can be that 10%er, right? I'm just telling you, by and large, after doing 34,000 lessons now, it's just not going to happen. So hopefully that helps, man. That's all I have today on our podcast. Again, shout out to all you guys for listening. We've surpassed the 100,000 download mark for the first time ever. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the follow button on wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to check us out at imaginegolf.com, and you can follow us on all the social media platforms or wherever you get your podcast. So here's to getting you the game you've always imagined.